You're born in a scrape on the frozen tundra, nothing more than a shallow depression your mother carved into the ground with her talons. The Arctic stretches endlessly in every direction, white, barren, and unforgiving. There's no fancy nest, no carefully woven twigs, just bare earth and whatever bits of moss and feathers your mother could gather. It's not much, but it's home. You emerge from your egg covered in thick, fluffy down that's whiter than fresh snow. Your eyes are closed, your legs are wobbly, and you can barely lift your oversized head. Next to you, your siblings are doing the same, stumbling around, peeping softly, trying to figure out how their bodies work. Some hatched before you and are already a bit bigger. Others are still working their way out of their shells, chipping away with their tiny egg teeth. Your mother towers over you, her yellow eyes scanning the horizon constantly. She's massive, nearly 2 feet tall, with a wingspan that could cover a small car. Her feathers are pristine white, with delicate black markings scattered across her back and wings. She looks like she was carved from the very ice that surrounds you. Every few minutes, she shifts position, using her body to shield you from the wind that never seems to stop blowing across the tundra. Your father is nowhere to be seen, but that doesn't mean he's abandoned you. He's out there somewhere, hunting. The Arctic summer is short, and prey is abundant right now, but it won't last forever. He needs to bring back as much food as possible while the hunting is good. Lemmings, Arctic foxes, even other birds, anything that moves and can fit in his talons is fair game. So for the first few days, you don't do much of anything. You huddle with your siblings, trying to stay warm in the brief moments when your mother steps away. The temperature can drop below freezing even in summer, and without your mother's body heat, you'd be dead within minutes. When she returns, she settles over you like a living blanket, her warm belly pressed against your back. Food arrives sporadically. Your father swoops in with something dangling from his talons, a lemming usually, sometimes a ptarmigan. He drops it near the scrape and immediately takes off again. There's no time for family bonding or tender moments. Survival is a full-time job, and every second counts. Your mother tears the prey apart with surgical precision. She pulls off small, soft pieces and gently places them in your gaping mouth. You don't have to compete too hard yet. There's usually enough to go around, but you notice that the biggest siblings get fed first, and if food is scarce, the smallest ones might not get anything at all. It's not cruelty, it's mathematics. In a world where resources are limited, your mother invests in the offspring most likely to survive. The meat is warm and rich, nothing like the regurgitated mush that some birds feed their young. Your parents are skilled hunters, and they bring you the real deal, fresh kills that fuel your rapid growth. You can feel yourself getting stronger with each meal, your legs becoming more stable, your down getting thicker. As the days pass, you start to venture beyond the immediate area around the scrape. Your legs are still unsteady, but curiosity drives you forward. The tundra is a strange place, vast and empty, yet somehow alive. The ground is spongy beneath your feet, waterlogged from melted permafrost. Strange plants poke through the soil. Arctic willows no taller than your legs, cushions of moss that feel like tiny mattresses, and colorful wildflowers that seem impossible in this harsh landscape. You quickly learn that wandering too far is dangerous. The first time you stray more than a few feet from the scrape, your mother's sharp call pierces the air. It's not a gentle warning, it's a command. You freeze instantly, some deep instinct telling you that ignoring that sound could mean death. You scramble back to safety, your tiny heart pounding. But the lesson isn't lost on you. There are things out there, things that want to eat you. You don't know what they are yet, but you can sense them. Sometimes you catch glimpses of movement, In the distance, a shadow sliding across the ground, a pair of eyes watching from behind a rock. Your mother sees them too, and when she does, her entire body tenses. Her head swivels like a periscope, tracking threats you can't even detect. One afternoon, while your mother is away briefly, you see it, a red fox padding silently across the tundra, its nose to the ground. It's following a scent trail, and you have a sinking feeling you know what scent it's following. The fox stops about 50 yards away, lifts its head, and stares directly at you and your siblings. You freeze, every instinct screaming at you to stay perfectly still. The fox takes a step forward, then another. It's not rushing. It knows you can't escape. Your siblings sense the danger too, and the scrape falls silent except for the wind. Then your mother appears from nowhere, dropping out of the sky like a white thunderbolt. She slams into the fox with her talons extended, knocking it sideways. The fox yelps and scrambles to its feet, but your mother is already airborne again, circling for another attack. She doesn't give it a chance to recover. She hits it again, this time with enough force to send it tumbling across the tundra. The fox gets the message. It picks itself up, shakes off the impact, and trots away without looking back. Your mother lands near the scrape, her feathers ruffled, her eyes still blazing with protective fury. She settles over you and your siblings, and for a moment, you feel completely safe. But the encounter teaches you something important. This world wants to kill you. The fox wasn't particularly large or intimidating, but it could have easily killed all of you if your mother hadn't intervened. And there are bigger, more dangerous things out there. Wolves, bears, other birds of prey. Your survival depends entirely on your parents' ability to protect you, and even they can't be everywhere at once. As you grow, your appetite becomes enormous. You and your siblings are eating machines, converting every scrap of meat into bone, muscle, and feathers. Your father works tirelessly, bringing back kill after kill. Sometimes he's successful, returning with fat lemmings or young ptarmigan. Other times he comes back empty-handed, and the scrape goes quiet with hunger. On the worst days, when prey is scarce and your father hasn't brought anything back for hours, you start to understand the harsh reality of your world. Your mother makes difficult decisions. The weakest sibling, the one who hatched last and never quite caught up, gets fed less frequently than not at all. Within a few days, that sibling stops moving, stops peeping, stops competing for food. Your mother removes the body without ceremony, carrying it away from the scrape. She doesn't grieve. There's no time for that. She returns and continues caring for the rest of you as if nothing happened. It's brutal, but it's also practical. In a world where resources are limited, sentiment is a luxury she can't afford. You're getting bigger now, your fluffy down giving way to more structured feathers. Your wings are developing, though they're still far too small to support your weight. Your talons are growing sharper, your beak more hooked. You're starting to look less like a helpless ball of fluff and more like a predator in training. Your behavior is changing too. You're more curious about the world beyond the scrape, more willing to explore despite the dangers. You've started playing with your siblings, pouncing on each other, wrestling, testing your growing strength. These games aren't just fun, they're training. Every mock battle teaches you something about balance, timing, and coordination that you'll need when you're hunting for real. One day, your father returns with something different, a young Arctic ground squirrel, still warm from the kill. Your mother begins tearing it apart as usual, but this time, she doesn't feed you directly. Instead, she places a chunk of meat on the ground in front of you. You stare at it, confused. This is new. You peck at it tentatively, then grab it with your talons and try to tear off a piece. It's harder than you expected. The meat is tough, and your beak isn't quite strong enough yet to cut through it cleanly, but you keep trying, and eventually you manage to swallow a small piece. It tastes the same as when your mother fed you, but somehow it feels different, more satisfying. You did this yourself. Your siblings are learning the same lesson, each of them struggling with their own pieces of meat. The weakest ones still get help from your mother, but the stronger ones are expected to figure it out on their own. It's another step toward independence, another skill you'll need to survive in this unforgiving world. The Arctic summer is beginning to fade. The days are still long. The sun barely sets at all, but there's a different quality to the light. It's softer, more golden, hinting at the darkness that will eventually swallow this land for months at a time. Your parents seem to sense the change too. They're more urgent now, more focused on building up your strength before the real challenges begin. Your father's hunting trips become longer and more frequent. He disappears for hours at a time, ranging far from the scrape in search of prey. When he returns, he's often carrying larger kills, adult lemmings, ptarmigan, even young rabbits. Your mother tears them apart with practiced efficiency, making sure each of you gets enough to fuel your rapid growth. You're molting now, your baby down falling out in clumps to be replaced by proper feathers. The process is itchy and uncomfortable, and you spend a lot of time preening, trying to help the new feathers emerge properly. Your wings are getting longer, more substantial. You can't fly yet, but you're starting to understand how they might work. One afternoon, while your mother is away, you decide to test them. You climb onto a small rock near the scrape and spread your wings wide. The wind catches them, and for a moment, you feel almost weightless. You flap experimentally, and your feet actually leave the ground for a split second. It's exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. Your siblings notice what you're doing and decide to try it themselves. Soon, all of you are hopping around the scrape, flapping your wings, and occasionally achieving brief moments of lift. None of you can actually fly yet, but you're learning the basics: how to position your wings, how to use the wind, how to coordinate your movements. Your mother returns to find you all engaged in these clumsy flight attempts. She doesn't discourage you, but she doesn't encourage you either. She simply watches, her yellow eyes tracking your progress. You get the sense that she's evaluating you, measuring your development against some internal timeline. Are you growing fast enough? Are you strong enough? Will you be ready for what's coming? Because something is coming. You can feel it in the air, see it in your parents' behavior. The hunting is getting harder. Your father comes back empty-handed more often, and when he does bring prey, it's smaller, scrappier. The fat lemmings of early summer are becoming scarce, replaced by lean, wary creatures that are harder to catch. The other animals of the tundra are changing too. The caribou herds that once grazed nearby have moved on, following ancient migration routes south. The Arctic foxes are growing thicker coats, their summer brown giving way to winter white. Even the plants are different. The wildflowers have faded, and the grasses are turning yellow and brittle. Your mother spends more time away from the scrape now, hunting alongside your father. She's teaching you independence by necessity. You and your siblings huddle together for warmth, your new feathers providing better insulation than your old down, but still not enough to keep you comfortable when the wind picks up. The scrape that once felt spacious now seems cramped. You and your siblings are getting too big for it, your growing bodies constantly bumping into each other. You've started claiming small territories within the larger space, each of you defending a particular spot against the others. It's practice for the territorial behavior you'll need as adults, but it's also a sign that your time together is limited. Your hunting instincts are awakening. When your father brings back prey, you don't just eat it, you study it. You examine how it's built, where the vulnerable spots are, how it might have behaved when it was alive. You pounce on scraps of fur and feathers, practicing the killing strikes you'll need to master. Your talons are getting sharper, your grip stronger. Sometimes small creatures venture too close to the scrape. Insects, tiny rodents, even small birds. Your first instinct is still to call for your mother, but increasingly, you find yourself stalking these creatures instead. You're not successful yet, but you're learning. Each failed attempt teaches you something about patience, timing, and the art of the hunt. The wind is getting colder. Ice begins forming on the shallow pools scattered across the tundra, and frost appears on the vegetation each morning. Your parents' urgency is palpable now. They're pushing you harder, expecting more from you with each passing day. The easy days of being fed and protected are ending, whether you're ready or not. One morning, you wake up to find your mother standing at the edge of the scrape, her body rigid with tension. She's staring at something in the distance, a dark shape moving across the white landscape. At first, you think it might be your father returning from a hunt, but the silhouette is wrong. Too big, too predatory, moving with a confidence that makes your stomach clench. It's a snowy owl from another territory, a massive male with cold yellow eyes that seem to take in everything at once. He's not here by accident. He's testing boundaries, looking for weakness, searching for opportunities. Your mother knows exactly what his presence means. She launches herself into the air without hesitation, her wings beating furiously as she climbs to meet the intruder. The aerial battle that follows is unlike anything you've ever witnessed. Both owls circle each other, gaining altitude, their wings catching the wind as they maneuver for position. Your mother strikes first, diving down with her talons extended, but the male is ready. He rolls aside at the last second, then counterattacks, forcing her to veer away sharply. They clash again and again, their bodies colliding midair with impacts that you can hear from the ground. Feathers drift down like snow, and you realize some of them are your mother's. She's holding her own, but this male is fresh, strong, and he's not giving up easily. He wants this territory, and he's willing to fight for it. Your father appears from nowhere, streaking across the sky like a white bullet. The intruder didn't expect to face both parents at once. Now he's outnumbered, and the dynamics of the fight shift instantly. Your parents work together with practiced precision, one attacking while the other circles, never giving the intruder a moment to recover. The male finally realizes he's beaten. He breaks off the attack, flying hard toward the horizon with your parents in pursuit. They chase him for nearly a mile before turning back, their message clear. This territory is defended, and any future intrusions will be met with the same response. When they return, both of your parents are breathing hard, their feathers ruffled and disheveled. Your mother has a small cut above her left eye, and your father is missing several tail feathers, but they're alive, and the territory is secure, for now. The encounter leaves you shaken. You've always known your parents were powerful, but seeing them in actual combat drives home just how dangerous this world really is. That male owl wasn't some random predator. He was exactly like your parents, just as skilled, just as deadly. The only thing that saved your family was superior numbers and intimate knowledge of the terrain. As the days grow shorter, your flying lessons become more intense. Your mother no longer tolerates clumsy attempts or half-hearted efforts. When you fail to achieve proper lift, She pushes you harder, sometimes even knocking you off balance, to force you to use your wings for recovery. It seems harsh, but you're starting to understand that harshness might be the only thing that keeps you alive. Your first real flight happens by accident. You're practicing your usual wing flapping routine on a rock when a sudden gust of wind catches your wings perfectly. Instead of the brief hop you're expecting, you find yourself actually airborne, your feet dangling several feet above the ground. Panic floods through you. You have no idea how to land, how to control your direction, how to do anything except flap frantically and hope for the best. You crash into the tundra with all the grace of a falling stone, tumbling head over tail before coming to rest in a patch of moss. Your mother watches from nearby, and you swear you can see something like approval in her eyes. You didn't fly well, but you flew. That's a start. From that moment on, flight becomes your obsession. You practice constantly, launching yourself from every available surface, testing your wings against different wind conditions, learning to read the air currents that flow across the tundra. Your siblings are doing the same, and soon the area around the scrape becomes a chaotic training ground of young owls attempting to master the most crucial skill of their lives. Some of your siblings are naturals, achieving smooth, controlled flight within days. Others struggle, their attempts ending in crashes and frustrated screeches. You fall somewhere in the middle, competent enough to stay airborne, but far from graceful. Each flight teaches you something new about balance, about using your tail as a rudder, about the subtle movements that separate controlled flight from barely controlled falling. Your hunting instincts are sharpening too. Small movements in the grass catch your attention now, and you find yourself automatically calculating distances, angles of approach, optimal strike zones. When a lemming ventures too close to the scrape, you don't just watch it, you stalk it, moving with a stealth that surprises even you. The lemming doesn't see you coming. You're still 20 feet away when you launch yourself forward, wings spread, talons extended. For a moment, you think you've got it. You're closing the distance. Your aim is perfect. Victory is within reach. Then the lemming dodges at the last second, and you slam into the ground where it used to be. The lemming disappears into the grass, leaving you sprawled on the tundra with dirt in your beak and wounded pride. Your mother, who witnessed the entire attempt, doesn't offer comfort or encouragement. She simply turns away, as if to say, "Try harder next time." You do try harder. Every day brings new opportunities to test your skills, and every failure teaches you something valuable. You learn that lemmings are faster than they look, that ptarmigan can explode into flight with startling speed, that even the smallest prey animals have survival instincts honed by millions of years of evolution. But you're learning too. Your strikes become more accurate, your timing improves, your ability to read prey behavior grows more sophisticated. You start to understand the subtle art of the hunt, how to use shadows and wind direction to your advantage, how to approach from unexpected angles, how to remain absolutely still until the perfect moment presents itself. The first time you successfully catch prey, it's almost anticlimactic. A young lemming, distracted by feeding, wanders within striking distance. You don't overthink it, you just react, launching yourself forward with perfect timing. Your talons close around the lemming's body, and suddenly you're holding a warm, struggling creature that represents survival itself. The lemming dies quickly, more from shock than from your inexpert killing technique. You stare down at it, hardly believing what you've accomplished. This is real food, food that you caught yourself, food that you earned through skill and patience and determination. When you tear into it and taste the warm meat, it's the most satisfying meal of your life. Your mother observes from a distance, but she doesn't intervene. This is your kill, your victory, your first real step toward independence. You eat every scrap, leaving nothing behind. In this harsh world, waste is a luxury you can't afford. The success changes something inside you. You're no longer just a helpless chick, dependent on your parents for survival. You're a predator in your own right, capable of taking life to sustain your own. The feeling is intoxicating and terrifying at the same time. Your siblings are achieving similar successes, each of them making their first kills within days of each other. The scrape becomes littered with the remains of small prey, bits of fur, tiny bones, scattered feathers. You're all learning the same lesson. In this world, you're either predator or prey, and you've chosen your side. The weather is turning colder now, and the brief Arctic summer is clearly ending. Ice forms on the water sources each night, and the ground crunches under your feet in the mornings. Your parents are spending more time away from the scrape, ranging farther and farther in search of prey that's becoming increasingly scarce. When they return, they're often empty-handed, their hunting trips unsuccessful. The fat, abundant lemmings of early summer are mostly gone, replaced by lean, wary survivors that are much harder to catch. Your parents' hunting success rate drops dramatically, and hunger becomes a constant companion. You start to understand why your parents pushed you so hard to learn hunting skills. The easy days of being fed regularly are over. Now you need to contribute to your own survival, to find your own food, to prove that you deserve to live through the coming winter. The competition between you and your siblings intensifies. When one of you makes a kill, the others watch jealously, their own hunger making them consider whether they might be able to steal the prey. These thoughts would have been unthinkable weeks ago, but starvation has a way of changing priorities. You're still family, but you're also competitors for limited resources. Your mother seems to sense the growing tension between you and your siblings. She starts spending less time at the scrape, leaving you alone for longer periods. At first, you think she's just hunting, but gradually you realize something else is happening. She's withdrawing from you, preparing for the inevitable separation that must come. The lesson is clear. Your childhood is ending, whether you're ready or not. The protected world of the scrape, where food appeared regularly and dangers were kept at bay, is becoming a memory. Soon, you'll be on your own in one of the harshest environments on Earth, with nothing but your wits, your skills, and your instincts to keep you alive. Your father has already started the process. His visits to the scrape are becoming less frequent, and when he does appear, he barely acknowledges your existence. He's not being cruel, he's being practical. His job was to feed you until you could feed yourself, and that job is nearly complete. The wind carries new scents now, the smell of snow, the crisp tang of approaching winter, the subtle changes that signal the end of the brief Arctic summer. Migration is in the air. Other birds are already leaving, forming great flocks that wheel across the sky before disappearing toward the south. But you're not ready to migrate yet. You're not ready for anything except the growing realization that, ready or not, your life is about to change forever. The first snow comes earlier than expected. You wake one morning to find the world transformed, a thin layer of white covering everything you've ever known, the scrape, the rocks, the sparse vegetation, all of it buried beneath a blanket that makes the landscape look alien and hostile. Your siblings huddle closer together, their newly grown feathers providing some insulation, but not enough to ward off the creeping cold that seeps into your bones. Your mother arrives with what will be her last delivery of food. She drops a small ptarmigan near the scrape, But instead of tearing it apart for you, as she's done countless times before, she simply stands back and watches. The message is unmistakable. Figure it out yourselves. You and your siblings eye the carcass warily, none of you quite ready to make the first move. This isn't just a meal, it's a test. The largest of your siblings, the one who hatched first and has always been the most aggressive, steps forward. He grabs the ptarmigan with his talons and begins tearing at it with his beak. The meat is tough, the feathers difficult to remove, but he persists. One by one, the rest of you join in, each claiming a piece of the kill. It's messy, inefficient, and nothing like the careful feeding your mother used to provide. But you manage, you have to. Your mother watches this chaotic feeding session with those piercing yellow eyes, and you can almost see her making calculations. Which of you will survive the coming winter? Which of you has the strength, the intelligence, the killer instinct necessary to make it through the dark months ahead? She doesn't stay to see the end of the meal. She simply spreads her wings and disappears into the gray sky, leaving you to finish your crude feast alone. The hunting becomes more desperate as the days pass. The lemmings have mostly vanished, either dead or deep in their burrows, preparing for hibernation. The ptarmigan are harder to catch now, their white winter plumage making them nearly invisible against the snow. You spend hours stalking shadows, chasing movements that turn out to be nothing more than wind-blown debris. When you do manage to catch something, it's usually small, a vole, an insect, anything that can provide a few calories of energy. Your siblings are facing the same struggles. You watch them from a distance as they hunt, noting their techniques, their successes and failures. The competition between you has become more intense, but it's also educational. When one of your siblings develops a new hunting strategy, you study it carefully, trying to understand what makes it work. When another makes a mistake that costs them a kill, you file that information away for future reference. The weakest of your siblings, the one who was always a step behind in development, disappears one night. You don't see what happens, but in the morning, there are fox tracks in the snow leading away from the scrape. Your remaining siblings gather around the disturbed snow where the tracks begin, but nobody discusses what obviously occurred. Death is becoming a familiar presence, and there's no time for mourning. Your father makes one final appearance, arriving at the scrape with a large Arctic hare clutched in his talons. It's the biggest prey item you've seen in weeks, and your stomach clenches with hunger at the sight of it. But he doesn't land. Instead, he circles overhead, calling out in a voice you've never heard before. It's not the gentle communication he used when you were younger. It's harsh, commanding, final. The message is clear. This is your inheritance. Everything he and your mother have taught you, every skill they've helped you develop, every moment of protection they've provided, it all comes down to this. You're on your own now. The hare drops from his talons, hitting the snow with a soft thud. Then your father banks sharply and flies away, heading south toward hunting grounds you'll never see. You and your siblings stare at the hare, then at each other. This is the moment you've been building toward, the final test of everything you've learned. The largest sibling moves first, but this time, you're ready. You launch yourself forward, wings spread, talons extended. The collision is brutal, bodies slamming together, wings beating frantically, claws scraping against feathers and flesh. The fight is brief but vicious. Your siblings are strong, but you're faster, more desperate. You manage to lock your talons around the hare's body and drag it away from the others. They follow, screeching their protests, but something in your posture warns them off. This is your kill now, your first real claim to independence. You tear into the meat with savage efficiency, eating as much as you can before the others work up the courage to challenge you again. When you finally look up, bloody and satisfied, your siblings are watching you with a mixture of fear and respect. You've crossed a line, moved from sibling to competitor to potential threat. The family unit that once provided safety and comfort is dissolving, replaced by the harsh realities of survival. In a few days, maybe weeks, you'll never see any of them again. The scrape feels different now, smaller, less significant. It's just a shallow depression in the ground, nothing more. The protection it once offered was never really about the location. It was about your parents' presence, their willingness to defend you against the world. Now that they're gone, the scrape is just another piece of tundra, no safer than anywhere else. You start ranging farther from the scrape, testing your wings against longer distances, exploring territories that were once forbidden. The landscape is vast and empty, broken only by the occasional rock outcropping or frozen stream. Everything looks the same, yet somehow you're beginning to read the subtle differences. The way wind patterns change around certain formations, the places where prey might shelter, the sight lines that offer the best hunting opportunities. Your first long-distance flight is terrifying. You launch yourself from a high rock and find yourself soaring over terrain you've never seen before. The ground rushes past below, a blur of white and gray. Your wings feel clumsy, your navigation skills primitive, but you stay aloft for nearly an hour before exhaustion forces you to land. When you finally touch down, you're miles from the scrape, alone in a landscape that offers no familiar landmarks. The panic hits you immediately. You've never been this far from home, never been completely alone before. You spin in circles, trying to orient yourself, but every direction looks the same. The wind carries no familiar scents, no sounds that might guide you back to safety. For a moment, you consider calling out for your mother, but some instinct tells you that would be a mistake. Predators listen for sounds of distress, and you're no longer under anyone's protection. You pick a direction and start flying, hoping to spot something recognizable. The sky is gray and featureless, offering no clues about navigation. You fly for what feels like hours, your wings growing heavy with fatigue, before you finally spot the familiar outline of the scrape in the distance. Relief floods through you as you glide toward it, but the lesson is clear. The world beyond your birth territory is vast and dangerous, and you're not ready for it yet. But ready or not, winter is coming. The snow falls more frequently now, accumulating in drifts that make hunting even more difficult. The few prey animals that remain are becoming increasingly wary, their survival instincts sharpened by the knowledge that predators are getting desperate. You catch a vole one day, a small mouse the next, but these tiny meals barely sustain you. Your body is burning through its fat reserves, and you can feel yourself getting weaker. Your siblings are struggling too. You see them occasionally, usually at a distance, each pursuing their own solitary hunt. Sometimes you catch glimpses of their hunting attempts, the failed strikes, the missed opportunities, the long periods of fruitless searching. None of you are thriving, but you're all still alive, which is more than many young owls can claim. The territorial boundaries that once seemed so important are breaking down. You find yourself hunting in areas that would have been off limits when your parents were still around. Other young owls are doing the same, and occasional confrontations flare up when two hunters target the same prey. These fights are brief but intense, more about establishing dominance than actually securing food. The winner gets the hunting ground. The loser moves on to search elsewhere. You're getting better at reading the landscape now, understanding how prey animals move and where they're likely to shelter. Lemmings, when you can find them, tend to stay near areas with good cover, rock crevices, dense vegetation, anything that offers protection from aerial predators. Ptarmigan prefer open areas where they can see threats coming, but they also need access to the sparse vegetation they feed on. The key is patience. You've learned to pick a promising spot and simply wait, sometimes for hours, until something moves within striking distance. It's boring, uncomfortable work, especially in the cold, but it's more effective than the frantic searching you used to do. Hunting is as much about endurance as it is about speed or strength. Your most successful hunt comes on a day when the wind is howling so hard that you can barely stay upright. Most predators would give up in conditions like this, but you've noticed that prey animals sometimes become less cautious when the weather is bad. They're focused on finding shelter, not watching for threats. You spot a ptarmigan huddled behind a rock, its white feathers barely visible against the snow. The approach takes nearly an hour. You have to move during the strongest wind gusts, when the sound of your movement is masked by the howling air. Every few minutes, you freeze in place, waiting for the ptarmigan to relax its vigilance. When you finally strike, it's with perfect timing and devastating accuracy. Your talons close around the bird's body, and it dies almost instantly. The meat is warm and rich, the first substantial meal you've had in days. As you eat, you realize something has changed. The desperate hunger that's been your constant companion for weeks is gone, replaced by a deep satisfaction that goes beyond mere physical nourishment. You made this kill entirely on your own, using skills you've developed through trial and error. You're no longer a helpless chick dependent on your parents' hunting abilities. You're a predator in your own right. The wind continues to howl around you as you finish your meal, but you're no longer afraid of it. The storm that would have terrified you weeks ago now feels like an opportunity, a chance to hunt when other predators are taking shelter. You're adapting to this harsh environment, learning to use its challenges to your advantage. Your siblings are becoming increasingly distant, both literally and figuratively. When you do encounter them, the interactions are brief and tense. You're all competing for the same limited resources, and the bonds of family are no match for the demands of survival. The scrape where you were born is abandoned now, just another unremarkable patch of ground slowly being buried by snow. The days are getting shorter, the sun barely clearing the horizon before disappearing again. In a few weeks, the polar night will begin, and this land will be plunged into months of darkness. You've heard your parents talk about migration, about following the prey south to warmer hunting grounds, but you're not ready for that kind of journey yet. Your flying skills are still developing, your navigation abilities primitive. Some of your siblings have already left, disappearing into the gray sky without warning or farewell. You don't know if they're migrating or simply moving to better hunting grounds, but their absence makes the tundra feel even more empty and hostile. The ones who remain are the strongest, the most skilled, the most determined to survive in this unforgiving landscape. You're among them, but you're not sure if that's a blessing or a curse. Staying means facing the polar night, the brutal cold, the near-complete absence of prey. But leaving means venturing into unknown territory, risking everything on a journey you might not survive. Either choice could be fatal, but doing nothing is guaranteed death. The decision, when it comes, feels almost inevitable. You're perched on a rock outcropping, watching the sun disappear below the horizon for what might be the last time in months, when you feel it, a pull toward the south, an instinct so strong it's almost physical. Your body knows what your mind is still trying to accept. it's time to leave. You spread your wings and launch yourself into the darkening sky. Below you, the tundra stretches endlessly, white and empty and beautiful in its harsh simplicity. This is the land where you were born, where you learned to hunt, where you took your first steps toward independence. You may never see it again, but it will always be part of you. Behind you, the scrape where your life began slowly disappears into the gathering darkness. Ahead lies the unknown, thousands of miles of unfamiliar territory, new predators, new prey, new challenges that will test every skill you've learned. You're no longer the helpless chick who emerged from an egg just months ago. You're a snowy owl, a master of the Arctic, ready to claim your place in the world. The migration begins now, and with it, the next chapter of your life. The polar night is coming, but you won't be here to see it. You're flying south toward survival, toward whatever future awaits you in the vast wilderness ahead. The wind fills your wings, carrying you forward into the darkness, and for the first time since your parents disappeared, you feel something like hope. The first week of migration is a nightmare. You've never flown this far or this long, and your body rebels against the constant motion. Your wings ache, your muscles cramp, and exhaustion becomes a weight you carry with every wing beat. The landscape below changes gradually, the stark white of the Arctic giving way to patches of brown and gray as you move south. But the transformation means nothing to you. All you care about is staying airborne long enough to find the next place to rest. You're not alone in the sky. Other birds are making the same journey. Ravens, rough-legged hawks, even other snowy owls scattered across the vast expanse. Most ignore you completely, focused on their own survival. But occasionally, you catch sight of another young owl struggling with the same challenges you face. There's no communication between you, no shared understanding. You're all competitors, even in migration. Your first real test comes when a storm front moves in from the west. The sky darkens to an ominous gray-green, and the wind shifts direction without warning. You're caught in the open, miles from any shelter, when the first raindrops hit. Within minutes, the gentle rain becomes a torrent that soaks through your feathers and makes flying nearly impossible. You struggle to maintain altitude as the storm intensifies. Your waterlogged feathers feel like they weigh twice as much as normal, and every wing beat becomes a monumental effort. Lightning flashes around you, followed by thunder that seems to shake the very air. You've never experienced anything like this in the Arctic, where storms meant snow and wind, not this chaotic violence of water and electricity. A massive gust catches you from the side, sending you tumbling toward the ground. You fight to regain control, wings flapping desperately, but the storm is too strong. You crash into a patch of scrub brush, your body slamming into the thorny branches with enough force to knock the breath from your lungs. For a moment, you just lie there, stunned and gasping, while the rain pounds down around you. The storm passes eventually, leaving you soaked and shivering in the sudden silence. You try to preen the water from your feathers, but it's a futile effort. Everything is wet, cold, and uncomfortable. Your first instinct is to wait for the sun to dry you out, but you quickly realize that luxury doesn't exist in migration. Every hour you spend recovering is an hour that other owls are using to put distance between themselves and the approaching winter. You force yourself back into the air, your wet feathers making flight clumsy and inefficient. But you fly anyway, because the alternative is death. The storm has scattered the other migrating birds, and you find yourself alone in a landscape that looks nothing like home. Rolling hills covered in unfamiliar vegetation stretch to the horizon, broken by patches of forest and the occasional glint of water. The hunting here is different from anything you've experienced. The prey animals are smaller, faster, more numerous, but also more difficult to catch. You spot a mouse scurrying through the grass below and dive down to intercept it. But the mouse disappears into a tangle of roots and leaves that would never exist on the tundra. You spend an hour trying to flush it out, growing increasingly frustrated as it eludes your every attempt. Your second attempt is more successful. A vole ventures too far from cover, and you manage to snatch it up before it can reach safety. The meat tastes different from Arctic prey, richer, with a flavor you can't quite identify, but it's food, and food is survival. You eat every scrap, including parts you would have discarded in the abundance of summer. The days blur together as you continue south. Fly until exhaustion forces you down. Hunt until you find something to eat. Rest until the cold or your own restlessness drives you back into the air. It's a grinding routine that slowly wears away at your strength and your sanity. You start to understand why so many young owls don't survive their first migration. It's not just about the physical challenges, it's about the mental endurance required to keep going when every instinct screams at you to stop. You encounter your first human settlement on a gray morning when the fog hangs so low you can barely see the ground. The structures appear out of the mist like alien formations, straight lines and right angles that nature never produces. Smoke rises from some of the buildings, and strange smells drift upward, burning wood, cooking food, the metallic tang of machinery. Your first impulse is to flee, but hunger overrides caution. You've been flying for days with only minimal food, and you can smell something that might be edible coming from one of the structures. You circle cautiously, staying high enough to escape quickly if necessary. Below you, strange creatures move around the buildings, bipedal, mostly hairless, making sounds you don't recognize. Then you see it. A human child drops something in the yard, and small birds immediately swarm down to investigate. Where there are small birds, there might be prey you can catch. You descend carefully, landing on the roof of a building where you can observe without being seen. The height gives you a good view of the yard below, and you settle in to wait. The waiting pays off. A rat emerges from beneath one of the structures, moving cautiously across the open ground. It's larger than anything you've caught since leaving the Arctic, and your stomach clenches with anticipation. You launch yourself from the roof, wings spread wide, talons extended. The rat sees you coming at the last second and tries to bolt, but you're faster. Your talons close around its body, and it dies with a brief squeak. The kill attracts attention you didn't expect. The humans notice you immediately, pointing and making excited sounds. Some of them disappear into the buildings, only to emerge with strange objects that they point in your direction. You hear mechanical clicking sounds, see brief flashes of light. None of it seems dangerous, but it's unsettling enough to make you grab your kill and retreat to a safer distance. From a nearby tree, you watch the humans continue their strange behavior. They seem fascinated by you, gathering in small groups to stare and point. Some of them make repeated attempts to approach, but you're not stupid enough to let them get close. You've learned that unfamiliar creatures are best avoided, especially when they show unusual interest in your presence. The rat provides enough nutrition to fuel another day of flight, but it also teaches you something important about this new environment. Human settlements can be sources of food, but they also attract attention. The key is to hunt quickly and escape before the humans can react. It's a lesson that will serve you well in the weeks to come. As you continue south, the landscape continues to change. The rolling hills give way to flatter terrain, broken by rivers and lakes that never freeze. The vegetation is different too, taller, denser, with trees that keep their leaves despite the advancing season. You're entering a world that operates by different rules, where winter doesn't mean the complete shutdown of life you're used to. The hunting opportunities multiply, but so do the challenges. There are more prey animals here, but there are also more predators. You encounter your first red-tailed hawk on a sunny afternoon, and the confrontation nearly ends in disaster. The hawk is smaller than you, but faster and more maneuverable. It doesn't attack directly, but it follows you persistently, waiting for you to make a mistake. The psychological pressure is enormous. You can't hunt effectively with a predator shadowing your every move, but you can't shake the hawk either. Every time you try to land, it swoops closer, forcing you back into the air. The standoff continues for hours, draining your energy and your patience. Finally, you decide to confront the problem directly. You turn to face the hawk, spreading your wings to their full extent and letting out a call that echoes across the landscape. It's a sound of pure aggression, a warning that you're not helpless prey to be harassed. The hawk hesitates, perhaps surprised by your boldness. In that moment of uncertainty, you strike, not to kill, but to drive home your point. Your talons rake across the hawk's wing, drawing blood and sending it tumbling toward the ground. The hawk recovers quickly, but the message is clear. You're not an easy target, and pursuing you isn't worth the risk. It banks away sharply, disappearing into the distance. You've won your first territorial dispute outside the Arctic, but the victory comes at a cost. The confrontation has used up precious energy and revealed your position to every predator in the area. You resume your journey with a new understanding of the challenges ahead. The South might offer more food opportunities, but it also means more competition, more conflict, more situations where a single mistake could be fatal. You're no longer the apex predator you were in the Arctic. Here, you're just another hunter trying to survive in a crowded and dangerous world. The weather continues to moderate as you fly south, but it brings new challenges. Rain becomes more frequent, and the wet conditions make hunting difficult. Your feathers, so perfectly adapted to Arctic conditions, seem less effective in this humid environment. You find yourself constantly preening, trying to maintain the waterproofing that keeps you warm and dry. Your hunting techniques need adjustment too. The prey here behaves differently, uses different escape strategies, hides in places you never encountered in the Arctic. You learn to hunt in forests, where visibility is limited and sound travels differently. You discover that meadow voles follow predictable paths through the grass, and that patience is more important than speed when hunting in dense cover. The first mouse you catch in a forest almost escapes because you don't account for the way sound bounces off trees. Your strike is perfectly timed, but the mouse hears you coming and dives into a pile of leaves at the last second. You spend 20 minutes digging through the debris before finally finding it, exhausted and traumatized but still alive. The kill is messy, inefficient, nothing like the clean strikes you perfected on the tundra, but you adapt. That's what survival means: constant adaptation to new conditions, new challenges, new threats. Each failed hunt teaches you something, and each success builds your confidence. You're not the same owl who left the Arctic weeks ago. You're becoming something new, shaped by the journey and the environments you've passed through. The nights are getting longer now, even this far south. You find yourself hunting in darkness more often, relying on your exceptional hearing to locate prey. It's a skill that serves you well in the Arctic, where the polar night made visual hunting impossible for months at a time. But here, the darkness is different, softer, warmer, filled with sounds and smells that don't exist in the far north. You're perched in a tree one evening, listening to the night sounds of this strange new world, when you hear something that makes your blood freeze. It's a call you recognize, but one you never expected to hear again. Another snowy owl somewhere in the darkness, announcing its presence with the same territorial voice your father used to use. The call comes again, closer this time. You strain your eyes, trying to spot the source, but the darkness is too complete. Then you see a pale shape moving through the trees, another owl, fully adult, hunting in the same area you've claimed as your own. This is your first encounter with an established adult since leaving your parents, and you're not sure how to react. The adult owl spots you almost immediately. It lands on a branch about 30 feet away, and you can see its eyes glowing in the darkness. It's larger than you, more confident, with the kind of presence that comes from years of survival. This is its territory, and you're trespassing. The confrontation is brief but decisive. The adult owl doesn't attack directly, but it doesn't need to. It simply flies closer, landing on the branch next to yours, and stares at you with those unblinking yellow eyes. The message is clear: leave now, or face the consequences. You're not ready for that kind of fight, and you know it. You spread your wings and launch yourself into the darkness, leaving the hunting grounds to the more experienced owl. It's a humbling experience, but also an educational one. You're still learning, still growing, still finding your place in the hierarchy of predators. The encounter reminds you that survival isn't just about hunting skills. It's about knowing when to fight and when to retreat. The migration continues, but now you're more cautious about territorial boundaries. You've learned to read the signs that indicate another owl's presence, the scratches on trees, the pellets dropped in specific locations, the subtle scent markers that delineate hunting grounds. Avoiding conflict becomes as important as finding food. Your flight path takes you over a large city one night, and the experience is overwhelming. The lights below create an artificial day that confuses your navigation instincts. The air is filled with strange smells and sounds: car engines, industrial machinery, the constant hum of human activity. You've never seen anything like it, and you don't want to linger. But the city also offers opportunities. The urban environment supports large populations of rats and pigeons, and you spot several other owls taking advantage of the abundant prey. You watch from a distance as an adult snowy owl hunts pigeons on a rooftop, its white form ghostly against the artificial lights. The technique is different from anything you've learned, but it's obviously effective. You try to replicate the urban hunting strategy, but your first attempt is a disaster. You misjudge the distance to a pigeon roosting on a building ledge and crash into a window instead. The impact stuns you, and you tumble toward the street below. You manage to spread your wings and glide to safety, but the experience leaves you shaken and wary of the urban environment. The city is clearly not for you, at least not yet. You continue south, leaving the lights and noise behind. The countryside beyond is quieter, more familiar, with hunting opportunities that don't require dodging cars and buildings. You're learning to pick your battles, to recognize environments where your skills give you an advantage. Days pass in a blur of flight and hunting. You're getting stronger, more skilled, more confident in your abilities. The desperate hunger that drove you from the Arctic is becoming a manageable part of your daily routine. You're not thriving yet, but you're surviving, and that's enough for now. The weather continues to moderate, and you start to encounter prey species that don't exist in the Arctic. Rabbits become common, and you learn to hunt them in open fields where your size and speed give you an advantage. The first rabbit you catch is almost too big to carry, but the meat provides enough nutrition to sustain you for days. You're eating that rabbit on a hilltop when you spot something that makes your heart race. Another young snowy owl, about your age, struggling with its own hunting attempts in the valley below. It's the first owl you've seen that looks like it might be from your own generation, and the sight triggers a complex mix of emotions. Part of you wants to approach, to connect with another creature that might understand what you've been through. But another part recognizes the owl as competition, a potential threat to your hard-won survival. You watch from a distance as it fails to catch a mouse, its technique clumsy and inefficient. It's clearly struggling, probably hungry, definitely desperate. The decision you make next will define more than just this moment. You could ignore the other owl, continue on your journey, and let it succeed or fail on its own merits. You could see it as competition and actively drive it away from the hunting grounds. Or you could do something unprecedented, something that goes against every survival instinct you've developed. You launch yourself from the hilltop and glide down toward the struggling owl. It sees you coming and tenses, ready to flee or fight. But instead of attacking, you land nearby and begin hunting in the same area, not competing directly, but demonstrating the techniques that have kept you alive. The other owl watches, learns, adapts. Within an hour, it makes its first successful kill in days. The moment of triumph is brief. It devours the mouse immediately, still wary of your presence. But something has changed between you. You've shared knowledge instead of competing for resources, and both of you have benefited from the interaction. Oh. The other owl doesn't follow you when you resume your journey south, but the encounter stays with you. You've discovered that survival doesn't always mean isolation, that sometimes cooperation can be more effective than competition. It's a lesson that will serve you well in the challenges ahead. The migration is entering its final phase now. You can sense it in the changing weather, the shifting bird populations, the subtle signs that indicate you're approaching your destination. The desperate urgency that drove you from the Arctic is giving way to a different kind of purpose. You're no longer just fleeing winter. You're seeking the territory where you'll spend the next phase of your life. The hunting grounds you encounter now are richer, more diverse, but also more contested. Every suitable territory seems to be occupied by resident owls who have no intention of sharing their resources with migrants. You're forced to hunt in marginal areas, taking risks you wouldn't normally consider, pushing your skills to their limits. But you're no longer the inexperienced chick who left the Arctic months ago. You've learned to read landscapes, to understand prey behavior, to navigate complex social hierarchies. The journey has transformed you from a dependent juvenile into a skilled predator capable of surviving in diverse environments. You're ready for whatever comes next. The first snow of your new winter home falls on a crisp morning in late November. It's nothing like the Arctic snow you grew up with. Lighter, wetter, less permanent, but it triggers something deep in your genetic memory, a recognition that this is where you belong. Not permanently, perhaps, but for now, this is the end of your first migration, the beginning of your life as an independent adult. You find yourself in a landscape of farmland and woodlots, with plenty of prey and enough space to establish your own territory. Other owls are here too, but the competition is manageable. You've learned to coexist, to find your niche in the complex ecosystem of predators and prey. The scrape where you were born is thousands of miles away, buried under snow and ice. Your parents, your siblings, the entire world of your childhood, all of it belongs to the past now. You're a different creature, shaped by the journey, strengthened by the challenges, ready to face whatever the future holds. As winter settles over your new territory, you establish a hunting routine that would have been impossible in the Arctic. The prey here doesn't disappear completely when the snow falls. It just becomes more challenging to find. Mice tunnel beneath the white blanket, their movements creating subtle ridges on the surface. You learn to read these signs, to strike through snow that would have been rock-hard permafrost back home. Your first successful snow hunt happens by accident. You're perched on a fence post, watching the field below, when you notice a slight movement in the snow about 20 feet away. It's barely visible, just a tiny disturbance in the smooth surface. You launch yourself forward, talons extended, and plunge through the snow. Your feet hit something warm and struggling, and suddenly you're holding a fat meadow vole that was tunneling just below the surface. The technique becomes second nature after that. You patrol the fields methodically, looking for the telltale signs of movement beneath the snow. It's like hunting ghosts, relying on sound and subtle visual cues to locate prey you can't actually see. Sometimes you miss, coming up with nothing but a talon full of snow. But when you connect, the rewards are substantial. These winter-adapted prey animals are well-fed and healthy, much better nutrition than the sparse offerings of the Arctic tundra. The farmland provides other opportunities too. Barns and outbuildings shelter large populations of rats and mice, and you learn to hunt in confined spaces where your size gives you an overwhelming advantage. The first time you enter a barn, the musty smell of hay and livestock is overwhelming. But beneath those odors, you detect something else, the sharp scent of rodents. The hunting inside buildings requires different skills. You can't rely on your usual aerial attacks when there's a roof just 8 feet above your head. Instead, you learn to move silently along the ground, using the maze of farm equipment and stored supplies as cover. The rats here are bold, accustomed to avoiding cats and dogs rather than aerial predators. They're completely unprepared for a 2-foot-tall owl with razor-sharp talons. Your first barn hunt yields 3 rats in less than an hour. It's more meat than you've seen in days, and you gorge yourself until you can barely fly. The abundance is intoxicating after months of marginal hunting. You start checking the barn regularly, treating it like a personal buffet. The farmer occasionally spots you and seems unbothered by your presence. You get the sense that he considers you a useful predator, keeping the rodent population under control. But the easy hunting doesn't last. Other owls discover the barn too, and suddenly you're competing for access to the best hunting spots. A great horned owl claims the main structure, its size and aggression making it the undisputed owner. You're forced to hunt in the smaller outbuildings, which offer fewer opportunities but less competition. The territorial disputes here are different from the simple dominance displays you witnessed in the Arctic. These are complex negotiations involving multiple species, each with their own hunting preferences and territorial requirements. You learn to coexist with red-tailed hawks who hunt during the day, screech owls who prefer the forest edges, and even other snowy owls who patrol different sections of the farmland. Your hunting territory gradually expands as you explore the surrounding landscape. You discover that different habitats offer different opportunities. The woodland edges are good for hunting small mammals at dawn and dusk. The open fields are perfect for your preferred aerial hunting style. The creek bottoms attract waterfowl and provide drinking water during dry spells. Each habitat requires different techniques. In the woods, you learn to hunt from perches, waiting motionless for prey to reveal itself. In the fields, you can use your superior vision to spot movement from great distances. Along the creek, you develop an entirely new skill, fishing. The first time you catch a fish, it's purely by accident. You're hunting for frogs along the bank when a large bass rises to take an insect near the surface. You strike instinctively, and suddenly you're holding a slippery, struggling fish that weighs nearly as much as you do. The fish is awkward to handle, nothing like the warm-blooded prey you're used to. But the meat is rich and nutritious, and you quickly learn to target the shallow areas where fish are most vulnerable. It's not a technique you can rely on regularly, but it provides valuable supplemental nutrition during lean periods. Winter deepens, and the hunting becomes more challenging. The easy prey of early winter has learned to avoid your favorite hunting spots. The rats in the barn have become warier, the mice in the fields more cautious. You're forced to expand your techniques, to hunt in weather conditions that would have sent you to shelter in the Arctic. You discover that some of your best hunting happens during snowstorms. The precipitation masks your approach, and prey animals are forced to move around more as their usual food sources become buried. You learn to hunt in near whiteout conditions, relying entirely on sound to locate your targets. It's exhausting work, but it often yields results when conventional hunting fails. The social dynamics of your winter territory become more complex as the season progresses. You're not the only young owl trying to establish itself in the area. Competition for the best hunting spots intensifies, and you find yourself in regular confrontations with other owls. Most of these encounters are resolved through intimidation displays, spreading wings, aggressive calls, territorial posturing, but occasionally they escalate to actual combat. Your first real fight happens on a bitter January morning. You're hunting in a promising field when another snowy owl, slightly larger than you, lands on your usual perch. It's a direct challenge to your territorial claim, and you respond immediately. The aerial battle is brief but vicious, talons slashing, wings beating, both of you screaming challenges at each other. You manage to rake your claws across the intruder's face, drawing blood and sending it tumbling toward the ground. The other owl recovers quickly, but the message is clear. This is your territory, and you're willing to fight for it. The intruder retreats, and you don't see it again for weeks. The victory establishes your reputation among the local owl population. You're no longer just another migrant trying to find a place. You're a legitimate resident with the strength to defend your claims. But territory is meaningless without the ability to hunt successfully within it. The prey animals in your area are adapting to your presence, becoming more cautious, changing their behavior patterns. You're forced to adapt too, developing new techniques and strategies to stay ahead of their evolution. You discover that hunting success often depends on timing as much as skill. The best opportunities occur during the brief periods when prey animals are forced to expose themselves. Early morning when they're searching for food, dusk when they're moving to new shelter, during weather changes when their usual routines are disrupted. You learn to read these patterns, to position yourself where prey is most likely to appear. The weather becomes your ally in ways you never expected. Rain drives earthworms to the surface, which attracts the small mammals that feed on them. Snow forces mice to create new tunnel systems, revealing their location to your trained eyes. Even wind can be useful, masking your approach and making prey animals less likely to detect your presence. Your hunting techniques continue to evolve throughout the winter. You develop specialized strategies for different prey types: the patient stalking required for rabbits, the quick strikes needed for birds, the careful approach necessary for hunting in areas with multiple escape routes. Each successful hunt adds to your knowledge base, building the expertise that will serve you for the rest of your life. The physical demands of winter hunting push your body to its limits. You're flying longer distances, hunting in harsher conditions, competing more intensely for resources. Your muscles grow stronger, your reflexes sharper, your endurance greater. The soft, protected chick who left the Arctic is becoming a hardened adult predator. But the mental challenges are just as demanding. You're constantly making decisions that could mean the difference between life and death: where to hunt, when to engage in territorial disputes, how to respond to threats from other predators. Each choice carries consequences, and there's no room for error in the harsh mathematics of survival. You encounter your first human conflict in February. A farmer notices your presence in his barn and decides you're a threat to his chickens. He sets traps, tries to shoot you, even brings in a dog to chase you away. The harassment is relentless, forcing you to abandon some of your most productive hunting areas. You learn to hunt at night, to avoid open areas during daylight, to constantly vary your patterns to avoid detection. The conflict teaches you important lessons about coexisting with humans. Some tolerate your presence, even welcome it as a form of natural pest control. Others see you as a threat and will go to great lengths to eliminate you. Reading human behavior becomes as important as reading prey behavior. You learn to distinguish between the farmers who accept your presence and those who view you as an enemy. Your hunting territory shifts as you adapt to human pressure. You discover that abandoned buildings often provide excellent hunting opportunities without the complications of human interference. Old barns, empty houses, unused outbuildings, these structures attract prey animals while offering protection from both weather and human harassment. The abandoned farmhouse becomes your favorite hunting spot. The structure is slowly collapsing, but the basement still provides shelter for large populations of mice and rats. You learn to navigate the maze of rotting timbers and debris, using your superior vision and hearing to locate prey in the darkness. The hunting here is consistently good, and you rarely encounter competition from other predators, but even the best hunting spots eventually become depleted. The constant pressure from your predation reduces the prey populations, forcing you to expand your territory or develop new techniques. You learn to rotate between different hunting areas, giving each location time to recover while you exploit others. Your success rate improves dramatically as winter progresses. The desperate hunger that characterized your early migration is replaced by a more manageable cycle of hunting and feeding. You're not just surviving anymore, you're beginning to thrive. Your body fills out, your feathers grow thick and lustrous, your movements become more confident and assured. The transformation is evident in your territorial behavior too. You're no longer defensive about your hunting grounds. You're actively aggressive, expanding your territory at the expense of weaker owls. The submissive postures you once displayed toward larger predators are replaced by confident displays of dominance. You're claiming your place in the hierarchy of predators. Other owls begin to avoid the areas where you hunt regularly. Your reputation spreads through the local predator community, establishing you as a force to be reckoned with. The territories you claim stay claimed, and the prey within them becomes increasingly productive as you refine your hunting techniques. The winter nights are long, but they no longer feel empty or threatening. You've learned to use the darkness to your advantage, hunting when your prey is most vulnerable and your competitors are less active. The skills you developed during the polar night of your birth territory serve you well in this new environment. Your calls echo across the frozen landscape with increasing frequency. These are no longer the desperate cries of a lost juvenile. They're the confident territorial announcements of an established adult. You're declaring your presence, warning competitors, and establishing your dominance over the hunting grounds you've claimed. The sounds of your voice carry for miles on the still winter air. Other owls respond, their calls creating a complex network of territorial communication that spans the entire region. You're learning to read these vocal signals, to understand the relationships between different predators, to anticipate conflicts before they develop. Your first winter as an independent adult is drawing to a close. The desperate struggle for survival that began when you left the Arctic has evolved into something more sustainable. You've established territory, developed hunting skills, and earned respect from the local predator community. You're no longer a migrant trying to find a place. You're a resident with legitimate claims to the resources around you. The ice on the ponds begins to thin as February gives way to March. The first migrating waterfowl appear, heading north toward their breeding grounds. You watch them pass overhead with something approaching indifference. The desperate urge to follow that once drove you from your birth territory has faded. This is your home now, at least temporarily. But even as you settle into your new life, you're aware that change is coming. The prey populations that sustained you through the winter are beginning to shift. Some species are preparing for their own migrations, while others are emerging from hibernation. The hunting opportunities that defined your winter survival are about to transform once again. Your body is changing too. The constant stress of survival has given way to a different kind of pressure, the biological imperative to reproduce. You're approaching sexual maturity, and with it, a whole new set of challenges and opportunities. The skills you've developed as a hunter will soon be tested in the complex world of courtship and territorial competition. The winter that nearly killed you has instead made you stronger. You've survived your first migration, established your first territory, and proven your ability to thrive in environments far from your Arctic birthplace. You're no longer the helpless chick who emerged from an egg in a tundra scrape. You're a skilled predator with the confidence and competence to face whatever challenges lie ahead. The snow begins to melt in earnest now, revealing the landscape you've called home for the past few months. The fields and forests that once seemed foreign and threatening have become familiar and comfortable. You know every productive hunting spot, every potential threat, every opportunity for advantage. This knowledge is your greatest asset, the foundation upon which your future survival depends. Spring is coming, and with it, the next phase of your life. You've survived the winter, but survival is just the beginning. The real test lies ahead in the complex world of adult relationships, territorial competition, and the biological imperative to pass your genes to the next generation. You're ready for that challenge, shaped by the harsh lessons of your first year of independence. The sun rises higher each day, and the hunting opportunities continue to evolve. You're no longer just adapting to change. You're anticipating it, preparing for it, using your accumulated knowledge to stay ahead of the shifting conditions. The desperate reactiveness of your early survival has given way to the strategic thinking of an experienced predator. Your territory expands as weaker owls abandon their claims or fail to survive the winter. The hunting grounds you once fought for are now undisputed, and your success rate reflects the reduction in competition. You're eating well, building the physical reserves that will sustain you through the challenges ahead. The first warm day of spring brings new opportunities and new challenges. Your winter prey is becoming less active, seeking shelter from the rising temperatures. But new species are emerging: ground squirrels, chipmunks, young rabbits born during the winter months. Your hunting techniques need to adapt once again, but you're confident in your ability to learn and adjust. You're no longer the same owl who left the Arctic in desperate flight from winter. You've been transformed by the journey, shaped by the challenges, strengthened by the constant pressure of survival. The skills you've developed, the knowledge you've gained, the confidence you've built, all of it prepares you for the next phase of your life. The territorial calls that once seemed threatening now sound like opportunities. Other owls are announcing their presence, revealing their locations, providing information about potential mates and rivals. You're learning to read these signals with increasing sophistication, preparing for the complex social interactions that lie ahead. Your first winter as an independent adult is ending, but your education as a predator continues. Each day brings new lessons, new challenges, new opportunities to refine your skills. You're no longer just surviving. You're learning to thrive in a world that once seemed impossibly hostile. Smooth. The ice breaks up on the creek, releasing the sounds of running water that have been silenced all winter. The familiar noise triggers something deep in your genetic memory, a recognition that seasonal change brings both opportunity and danger. You're ready for whatever comes next, armed with the knowledge and skills that will serve you for the rest of your life. The creek's music signals more than just the end of winter. It announces the beginning of mating season. You feel the change in your body first, a restlessness that has nothing to do with hunger or territorial disputes. Your calls become more frequent, more complex, carrying messages you've never needed to send before. Other owls are responding too, their voices creating a network of communication that spans miles of farmland and forest. You encounter your first potential mate on a moonlit night in early April. She's hunting in the field, adjacent to your territory, her white form ghostly against the dark earth. She's smaller than you, but moves with the confident precision of an experienced predator. When she spots you watching from your perch, she doesn't flee. Instead, she lands on a fence post about 50 yards away and begins calling. The sound is different from any territorial challenge you've heard. It's softer, more melodic, with subtle variations that seem designed to convey information rather than aggression. You respond instinctively, your own call matching her tone and rhythm. For the first time since leaving the Arctic, you're engaged in a conversation rather than a confrontation. The courtship ritual that follows is unlike anything you've experienced. She doesn't simply accept your presence, she tests you. When you approach, she flies to a different perch, forcing you to follow. When you demonstrate your hunting skills by catching a mouse, she responds by catching a larger vole. It's a dance of mutual evaluation, each of you assessing the other's fitness as a potential mate. The process continues for days. You hunt together, not as competitors, but as partners evaluating each other's abilities. She leads you to hunting spots you've never discovered, demonstrating knowledge of the local terrain that exceeds your own. In return, you show her techniques you've developed during your winter of survival, the hard-won skills that kept you alive when other young owls failed. Your first attempt at physical courtship is clumsy and embarrassing. You approach too quickly, too aggressively, and she responds with a sharp rebuke that sends you tumbling backward off your perch. The message is clear: patience and respect are required. This isn't about dominance or conquest. It's about partnership and mutual consent. You learn to read her signals more carefully. When she preens her feathers in your presence, It's an invitation to come closer. When she turns away, it's a request for space. The subtle body language of courtship is more complex than anything you've encountered in territorial disputes or hunting situations. Each gesture carries meaning, and misinterpreting those meanings can end the relationship before it begins. The breakthrough comes when you successfully share a kill. You catch a large rabbit in her presence, and instead of consuming it immediately, you tear off a choice piece and offer it to her. She accepts, and for the first time, you eat together in companionable silence. The act of sharing food creates a bond that transcends the competitive relationships you've known with other owls. Her acceptance transforms your understanding of what it means to be an adult owl. You're no longer just a solitary hunter fighting for survival. You're part of a pair with responsibilities and opportunities that extend beyond your individual needs. The territory you've claimed becomes shared space, and your hunting success benefits both of you. The mating itself is brief but intense. It happens on a warm evening in late April, after weeks of courtship and mutual evaluation. The physical act is over quickly, but the emotional and biological significance reverberates through your entire being. You've crossed another threshold in your development, from juvenile to adult, from solitary survivor to potential parent. Your partner doesn't stay with you after mating. She has her own territory to maintain, her own hunting grounds to defend. But the relationship continues with regular meetings and shared hunts that strengthen the bond between you. You're learning that adult owl relationships are more complex than the simple family units you knew as a chick. The demands of maintaining both territory and relationship push your skills to new levels. You're hunting not just for yourself, but for two, and the increased pressure reveals weaknesses in your technique that you never noticed before. You're forced to become more efficient, more strategic, more successful in your hunting attempts. Your territorial boundaries expand as you incorporate your mate's hunting grounds into your own patrol routes. The area you defend doubles in size, and with it, the number of potential conflicts with other owls. You find yourself in regular confrontations with neighbors who view your expansion as a threat to their own territories. The first serious challenge comes from an older male who's been watching your courtship activities with obvious disapproval. He's larger than you, more experienced, and clearly believes your mate should be his. The confrontation is inevitable, and when it comes, it's more violent than any territorial dispute you've experienced. The battle takes place over your shared hunting ground, with both of you fighting not just for territory, but for the right to mate. The older male has advantages in size and experience, but you have the desperation of youth and the motivation of protecting something precious. The fight is brutal, with both of you sustaining serious injuries before he finally retreats. Your victory establishes your status in the local hierarchy more definitively than any previous confrontation. You're no longer just another young owl trying to find a place. You're a legitimate adult with the strength to defend your claims against all challengers. The respect you've earned comes at a cost, but it's a cost you're willing to pay. The relationship with your mate deepens as spring progresses. You develop hunting strategies that take advantage of both your skills, with each of you specializing in different types of prey. She's better at catching small, fast-moving targets, while you excel at taking down larger, more challenging prey. Together, you're more successful than either of you could be alone, but the partnership also brings new vulnerabilities. You're emotionally invested in her survival in ways that extend beyond simple territorial cooperation. When she's injured in a hunting accident, Catching her wing on a barbed wire fence, you find yourself bringing her food and defending her territory while she recovers. The selfless behavior would have been impossible during your desperate winter survival, but it feels natural now. Your mate's recovery takes weeks, during which you're responsible for hunting across both your territories. The workload is enormous, and you find yourself losing weight despite your improved hunting skills, but the experience teaches you about the sacrifices required for successful pair bonding. Adult relationships aren't just about mutual benefit, they're about mutual support during times of crisis. The injured wing heals imperfectly, leaving your mate with a slight limp in flight that never fully disappears. But the shared experience of her recovery creates a bond between you that transcends the physical aspects of your relationship. You've proven your commitment to her welfare, and she's demonstrated her trust in your ability to provide for both of you. Your hunting techniques continue to evolve as you adapt to the changing seasons. Spring brings new prey species and new opportunities, but it also brings new challenges. The abundant food sources that sustained you through winter are disappearing, replaced by different species with different behavior patterns. You're constantly learning, constantly adapting, constantly improving your skills. The first young rabbits of the season present opportunities you've never encountered. They're larger than winter prey, but inexperienced, making them vulnerable to predators who can exploit their mistakes. You develop specialized techniques for hunting juvenile prey, taking advantage of their inexperience while avoiding the protective instincts of their parents. Your success rate improves dramatically as you master these new hunting opportunities. The desperate hunger that characterized your early survival is replaced by a more strategic approach to feeding. You're no longer just catching enough to survive. You're building the physical reserves necessary for the demanding months ahead. The territorial conflicts that once consumed so much of your energy begin to stabilize as the local hierarchy becomes established. You know which owls to avoid, which ones you can dominate, and which ones represent genuine threats to your territory. The constant vigilance required during your initial establishment gives way to a more manageable routine of patrol and defense. Your mate begins showing signs of nesting behavior in early May. She's investigating potential nesting sites, testing the security and accessibility of various locations. The process is methodical and thorough, with each site evaluated according to criteria you're only beginning to understand. Proximity to hunting grounds, protection from predators, shelter from weather, all of these factors influence her decision. The site she eventually chooses is a natural depression beneath a fallen tree in the center of your shared territory. It's not the elaborate structure your Arctic parents created, but it's secure and well-positioned for defense. You help her prepare the site, bringing soft materials and clearing away debris that might attract unwanted attention. The egg-laying process begins in late May, with your mate producing a clutch of 4 eggs over the course of a week. Each egg represents a massive investment of energy and resources, and the responsibility of protecting them weighs heavily on both of you. Your hunting territory becomes a fortress, with every intrusion met by aggressive defense. Your role during incubation is similar to what you remember of your father's behavior. You're responsible for hunting, territorial defense, and providing security while your mate tends to the eggs. The workload is enormous, but you're better prepared for it than your father was. Your winter of survival has taught you efficiency and strategic thinking that serve you well in your new role. The incubation period lasts nearly a month, during which you're constantly alert for threats to your growing family. Every shadow could be a predator, every sound could signal danger. The hypervigilance is exhausting, but it's also necessary. The eggs are vulnerable to a wide range of threats, from ground predators to rival owls seeking to eliminate future competition. Your hunting success during this period determines not just your own survival, but the survival of your mate and unborn chicks. The pressure pushes you to new levels of efficiency and effectiveness. You develop specialized techniques for hunting multiple prey items during single outings, maximizing your productivity while minimizing time away from the nest. The first egg hatches on a warm morning in early June. The tiny chick that emerges is even more helpless than you remember being, a fragile bundle of down that depends entirely on its parents for survival. The sight triggers protective instincts you never knew you possessed, a fierce determination to defend this vulnerable creature against all threats. Your mate's behavior changes immediately after the first hatching. She becomes even more protective, rarely leaving the nest except for brief periods of feeding and exercise. The responsibility for providing food falls almost entirely on you, and the pressure is immense. You're now hunting not just for yourself and your mate, but for growing chicks whose appetites will increase exponentially over the coming weeks. The other eggs hatch over the following days, each new chick adding to the demands on your hunting abilities. By the time the last egg hatches, you're feeding a family of 6, and the workload is pushing you to your physical limits. You're hunting from dawn to dusk, ranging farther from the nest than you'd prefer, taking risks you normally wouldn't consider. The chicks grow with startling rapidity, their demands for food increasing daily. What started as tiny scraps suitable for newly hatched birds quickly escalates to whole prey items. You find yourself catching mice, voles, and small birds in rapid succession, each kill immediately delivered to the nest and consumed by the voracious chicks. Your hunting territory expands out of necessity as you search for enough prey to satisfy your growing family. The careful boundaries you established during winter become fluid as you range into areas you've never explored. The risk of territorial conflicts increases, but the alternative, failing to provide adequate food, is unacceptable. The first major threat to your family comes from an unexpected source. A red fox discovers the nest site and begins stalking the area, waiting for an opportunity to attack the chicks. The threat is serious enough that you and your mate must coordinate your defense, taking turns guarding the nest while the other hunts. The stress of constant vigilance takes a toll on both of you, but the alternative could be catastrophic. The confrontation with the fox is inevitable and violent. It approaches the nest during a brief period when both you and your mate are away hunting. You return to find it circling the nest site, clearly preparing to attack. The battle that follows is desperate and brutal, with both you and your mate attacking simultaneously. The fox is larger and more powerful than either of you, but your combined assault forces it to retreat. The incident reinforces the importance of coordination in defending your family. You and your mate develop a system of signals and responses that allows you to communicate threats and coordinate defenses even when separated by considerable distances. The partnership that began with courtship has evolved into a sophisticated alliance for survival. Your chicks are developing rapidly, their down giving way to more substantial feathers. They're becoming more active, more demanding, and more vulnerable to predators that might view them as easy prey. The nest site that once seemed secure now feels exposed, and you find yourself constantly evaluating potential threats and escape routes. The first attempts at flight by your chicks are both exciting and terrifying. They're clumsy and inexperienced, making them vulnerable to ground predators and aerial threats. You and your mate must maintain constant vigilance, ready to defend against attacks from any direction. The stress of protecting multiple inexperienced flyers pushes your defensive capabilities to their limits. Your hunting success during this critical period determines whether your chicks will survive to independence. The prey requirements of 4 growing owls are enormous, and you're ranging farther from the nest than ever before. The physical demands are taking their toll, but the biological imperative to provide for your offspring overrides considerations of personal safety. The chicks' first successful hunts mark a turning point in their development and your responsibilities. When the oldest chick catches its first mouse, the pride you feel is overwhelming. It's a validation of your success as a parent and a sign that your intensive efforts are producing results. The chick that once depended entirely on your hunting skills is beginning to develop its own predatory abilities. But independence doesn't come quickly or easily. The chick still requires substantial support, and your hunting responsibilities continue at a demanding pace. You're teaching them by example, demonstrating techniques and strategies while continuing to provide the majority of their food. The balance between support and independence is delicate and crucial. The summer hunting season brings new opportunities and new challenges. The prey populations that sustained you through spring are changing again, and you must adapt your techniques to exploit new species and new behavior patterns. The knowledge you've accumulated over months of intensive hunting serves you well, but continuous learning remains essential. Your chicks are developing their own hunting preferences and techniques, each showing aptitude for different types of prey. One excels at catching small, fast-moving targets, while another shows promise for taking larger, more challenging prey. The diversity of skills within your family group increases its overall survival potential. The territorial pressures that eased during nesting season begin to intensify again as other owl families face similar challenges. Competition for productive hunting grounds increases, and you find yourself in regular confrontations with neighbors who are also trying to provide for growing families. The stakes are higher now, with the survival of your chicks depending on your ability to defend your territory. Your mate's recovery from the demands of nesting and chick rearing is gradual but steady. She begins participating more actively in hunting and territorial defense, sharing the workload that you've been carrying alone. The partnership that was temporarily unbalanced by the demands of reproduction begins to stabilize again. The first signs of independence in your chicks appear in late summer. They're spending more time away from the nest site, exploring their territory, testing their flying and hunting skills. The constant supervision they once required is giving way to more periodic check-ins and guidance. Your role is evolving from provider to teacher to occasional advisor. Your hunting techniques continue to evolve as you adapt to the changing needs of your family. The intensive feeding required during early chick development gives way to more strategic hunting designed to teach rather than simply provide. You're demonstrating techniques, sharing kills, and gradually reducing your direct support as your chicks become more self-sufficient. The physical demands of providing for a family have transformed your body and your capabilities. You're stronger, more skilled, and more efficient than you were before becoming a parent. The desperate survival instincts that characterized your first winter have been refined into sophisticated predatory abilities that serve your family's needs. Your territory has expanded and solidified during the breeding season. The boundaries you established as a solitary hunter have been tested and reinforced by the demands of defending a family. The respect you've earned from neighboring owls reflects not just your individual capabilities, but your success as a breeding adult. The approaching autumn brings new challenges and opportunities. Your chicks are nearing independence, but they're not yet ready for the rigors of migration or winter survival. The timing of their development will determine whether they accompany you on your next migration or attempt to survive their first winter in the territory where they were born. Your mate's behavior is beginning to change as the breeding season winds down. The intense cooperation that characterized your partnership during nesting is giving way to more independent behavior. She's beginning to establish her own hunting patterns and territorial preferences, preparing for the eventual separation that must come. The lessons you learned during your own difficult transition to independence inform your approach to preparing your chicks for the same challenge. You're gradually reducing your support, forcing them to develop their own hunting skills and territorial awareness. The process is difficult for both parent and offspring, but it's essential for their long-term survival. Your first breeding season is drawing to a close, and the experience has transformed you in ways you never anticipated. You're no longer just a skilled hunter and territorial defender. You're a successful parent who has contributed to the continuation of your species. The pride and satisfaction you feel are tempered by the knowledge that your chicks must soon face the same challenges that nearly killed you. The success of your breeding effort will be measured not by your immediate satisfaction, but by your chicks' ability to survive and reproduce in their turn. The skills you've taught them, the territory you've defended for them, and the genetic heritage you've passed on will determine their chances in the harsh world they're about to enter. Your calls echo across the territory with new authority now. They're no longer just territorial announcements or mating displays. They're the confident communications of a successful breeding adult. Other owls in the area recognize the change in your status, and their responses reflect the respect you've earned through your accomplishments. The autumn migration season approaches, and with it, decisions that will shape the next phase of your life. Your chicks are developing the skills they'll need for independence, but they're not yet ready for the challenges of long-distance migration. The choice of whether to leave them behind or attempt to guide them through their first migration will determine their chances of survival. Your mate is preparing for her own migration, her behavior becoming more restless and independent. The partnership that sustained you through the breeding season is evolving again, adapting to the changing demands of the seasonal cycle. The bond between you remains strong, but it's no longer the exclusive focus of your daily existence. The territory you've defended so fiercely throughout the breeding season begins to feel less important as migration instincts awaken. The boundaries that once seemed crucial to your survival are becoming fluid again, and your attention is turning toward the distant territories where you'll spend the winter months. Your hunting patterns are changing too, shifting from the intensive provisioning required during chick rearing to the more strategic feeding necessary for building migration reserves. You're eating more, storing fat and energy for the long journey ahead. The efficiency you developed as a provider serves you well in this new phase of preparation. The first frost of autumn triggers changes in both your behavior and your physiology. The migration instincts that brought you to this territory are awakening again, and the cycle that began with your desperate flight from the Arctic is preparing to repeat itself. But this time, you're not a desperate juvenile fleeing winter. You're an experienced adult with the knowledge and skills to make strategic choices about your future. Your chicks are approaching the moment of independence, and the decisions they make in the coming weeks will determine their survival prospects. The territory you've defended, the skills you've taught them, and the genetic heritage you've provided are their inheritance. Whether they use these gifts successfully depends on factors beyond your control. The approaching winter brings both challenges and opportunities. Your success as a breeding adult has established your status in the local hierarchy, but it has also attracted attention from competitors who view your territory as valuable prize. The conflicts that await you will test not just your hunting abilities, but your strategic thinking and territorial skills. Your mate's departure for her wintering grounds marks the end of your breeding partnership, at least for this season. The bond between you may bring you together again next spring, but for now, you're returning to the solitary existence that characterized your pre-breeding life. The transition is both liberating and lonely, offering new opportunities while ending the intense cooperation that defined your summer. The knowledge you've gained during your first breeding season will serve you well in future reproductive efforts. You understand now what it takes to successfully raise young in this harsh environment, and the experience has refined your abilities as both hunter and defender. The skills you've developed will make you more attractive to potential mates and more successful in future breeding attempts. Your first winter as a breeding adult approaches with familiar urgency, but this time, you're not fleeing in desperation. You're making calculated decisions based on hard-won experience. The territory that sustained your family through the breeding season is becoming less productive as prey animals prepare for winter. The easy hunting of summer is giving way to the lean months ahead, and you need to decide whether to stay and compete with other residents or join the migration south. Your chicks make the decision for you. 3 of them have developed enough skill to attempt migration, while the 4th, the smallest, the one who hatched last, struggles with the basic flying techniques necessary for long-distance travel. You're faced with an impossible choice: abandon the weak chick to accompany the stronger ones, or stay behind and risk losing all of them to winter starvation. The choice tears at instincts you didn't know you possessed. The protective drive that kept you hunting through exhaustion all summer conflicts with the cold logic of survival. You can't save them all, and attempting to do so might doom them all. In the end, you make the same decision your parents once made. You choose the offspring most likely to survive. You lead the 3 strongest chicks south on a gray October morning, leaving the 4th behind in territory that might sustain it through winter or might become its grave. The decision haunts you as you fly, but it's the same calculation that has governed owl survival for millions of years. Resources are limited, and sentiment is a luxury predators can't afford. The migration with inexperienced chicks is exponentially more difficult than your solo journey the previous year. They tire quickly, make poor decisions about weather and terrain, and lack the strategic thinking necessary for efficient travel. You're constantly adjusting your route to accommodate their limitations, extending what should be a direct journey into a meandering odyssey of stops and starts. Your first chick dies during a storm in Minnesota. The weather hits without warning, and the young owl lacks the experience to find adequate shelter. You discover the body the next morning, frozen beneath a pine tree where it sought protection from the wind. The loss is devastating, but you can't afford to grieve. The 2 remaining chicks need your leadership more than ever. The second loss comes from predation. A great horned owl attacks your family group during a rest stop in Iowa, targeting the weakest of your remaining chicks. You fight desperately to defend your offspring, but the larger owl is too powerful. Your chick dies in the battle, and you're left with injuries that slow your progress for days. The surviving chick watches in silent terror as you struggle to recover from wounds that could have been fatal. The final leg of the journey tests both your endurance and your last chick's determination. You're both exhausted, operating on reserves that are dangerously low. The hunting along the migration route is poor, and you're losing weight at an alarming rate. Your chick is even worse off, its inexperience making it inefficient at finding food in unfamiliar territory. You reach the wintering grounds in Kansas with your last chick barely alive. The territory you claimed the previous year is occupied by other owls, forcing you to compete for marginal hunting areas. The stress of providing for both yourself and your dependent offspring in poor habitat pushes you to your limits. You're hunting 18 hours a day, catching barely enough prey to keep both of you alive. The final test comes in January during the coldest weather of the winter. Your chick has developed reasonable hunting skills, but a severe ice storm coats everything in a layer of frozen precipitation that makes prey nearly impossible to catch. You're forced to share your own meager kills, giving your chick the best portions while you survive on scraps. The sacrifice weakens you dangerously, but it keeps your offspring alive. Your chick's first independent kill comes during a brief thaw in February. The success is modest, a small mouse caught after hours of patient stalking, but it represents a crucial milestone. Your offspring is finally contributing to its own survival, reducing the burden on your depleted reserves. The pride you feel is tempered by exhaustion, but it's genuine satisfaction in your success as a parent. The remainder of the winter passes in a blur of marginal hunting and constant vigilance. You're both surviving, but barely. The territory you've managed to claim is poor quality, and the competition from other owls is intense. Every day brings new challenges, new conflicts, new tests of your ability to provide for your family. Spring arrives with the promise of easier hunting and the eventual return to breeding territory. Your chick has developed into a competent hunter, capable of surviving independently. The knowledge fills you with satisfaction, tinged by the awareness that your parental duties are nearly complete. Soon, your offspring will strike out on its own, and you'll return to the solitary existence that preceded your breeding success. Your chick's departure happens without ceremony on a warm April morning. One day, it's hunting alongside you. The next, it's gone, disappeared into the vast landscape to find its own territory and establish its own life. The absence is both relief and loss, relief from the constant pressure of providing for another, loss of the companionship that sustained you through the difficult winter. You begin your own return migration to the breeding grounds with mixed emotions. The territory you left behind may or may not be available, depending on what happened to the chick you abandoned and whether other owls have claimed your former hunting grounds. The uncertainty is both anxiety-provoking and exciting, a return to the challenges that have defined your adult life. The flight north is faster and more direct than your previous migrations. You're traveling alone, without the burden of inexperienced companions or the desperate urgency of your first journey. You're a confident, experienced migrant now, capable of reading weather patterns and terrain features that once mystified you. The skills you've developed serve you well as you navigate back toward your birthplace. You arrive at your former territory in early May to find it occupied by a younger owl, probably one of your siblings who survived the previous winter. The confrontation is inevitable, but it's not the desperate battle you might have expected. Your experience and confidence give you advantages that overcome the younger owl's physical condition. The territory is yours again, reclaimed through skill rather than desperation. The familiar hunting grounds welcome you back with abundant prey and well-known shelter sites. The knowledge you've accumulated over years of residence serves you well as you reestablish your territorial boundaries and begin the process of attracting a new mate. The cycle that began with your hatching continues, but now you're the experienced adult rather than the helpless chick. Your second breeding season is more successful than your first. You've learned from your mistakes, refined your techniques, and developed the efficiency that comes from experience. Your new mate is younger than your previous partner, but she's eager to learn from your knowledge. The partnership develops quickly, built on mutual respect and shared competence. The nest site you choose is better defended than your first attempt, located in a position that offers multiple escape routes and excellent visibility. The lessons you learned from the fox attack inform your selection, and the improved security pays dividends throughout the nesting period. Your family faces fewer threats, and the reduced stress improves your hunting efficiency. Your second clutch is smaller but healthier than your first. 3 eggs produce 3 viable chicks, and all of them survive to independence. The improved success rate reflects your growing competence as a parent and your better understanding of the challenges involved in raising young. You're becoming a more effective contributor to your species' survival. The years blur together as you establish yourself as a dominant breeding adult in your territory. Some seasons are more successful than others, but your overall reproductive success is substantial. You've contributed dozens of offspring to the population, and many of them have gone on to breed successfully in their turn. Your genetic legacy is spreading through the population, carried by descendants you'll never meet. Your territory expands as you age, eventually encompassing several square miles of prime hunting habitat. The boundaries you defend are respected by other owls, and your status in the local hierarchy is unquestioned. You've become one of the apex predators in your ecosystem, a force that shapes the behavior of prey and competitor species alike. The hunting techniques you've developed over years of experience are refined to near perfection. You can read landscape features and prey behavior with an accuracy that would have seemed impossible during your desperate first winter. The skills that once required conscious effort have become instinctive, allowing you to focus on strategic rather than tactical considerations. Your calls echo across the territory with the authority of an established dominant. Other owls recognize your voice and respond appropriately, whether they're potential mates, territorial rivals, or young birds seeking guidance. The communications network you're part of spans hundreds of square miles, connecting you to owls you've never met, but whose behavior affects your daily life. The migrations become routine, though never without risk. You've learned to read weather patterns, to anticipate the behavior of other migrating birds, and to identify the most productive hunting areas along your route. The desperate flights that characterized your early years give way to strategic movements designed to maximize your chances of survival and reproductive success. Your winter territories shift over the years as you explore new regions and exploit different opportunities. The knowledge you've gained about diverse ecosystems makes you adaptable to changing conditions. Climate variations that might challenge less experienced owls become opportunities for you to demonstrate your superior skills. The social aspects of your existence become more complex as you age. You're no longer just a territorial defender and hunter. You're a mentor to younger owls, a competitor with peers, and a respected member of the broader owl community. The relationships you maintain influence your access to resources and your success in territorial disputes. Your physical condition remains excellent well into your maturity. The constant demands of hunting, territorial defense, and migration have kept you in peak condition. Your feathers are lustrous, your flight is powerful, and your reflexes remain sharp. The harsh environment that kills so many owls has instead made you stronger and more capable. The prey populations in your territory fluctuate with natural cycles, but your experience allows you to adapt to changing conditions. You've learned to exploit alternative food sources during lean periods and to build reserves during times of abundance. The strategic thinking that once focused on day-to-day survival now encompasses long-term planning and resource management. Your breeding success attracts attention from researchers studying owl populations. You're captured and fitted with identifying bands that allow scientists to track your movements and monitor your reproductive success. The data you provide contributes to understanding of owl ecology and conservation, though you're unaware of your contribution to science. The territory you've defended for years becomes a case study in successful owl habitat management. The prey populations you've managed through predation pressure remain stable and healthy. The shelter sites you've maintained provide refuges for numerous species. Your presence has shaped the ecosystem in ways that extend far beyond your immediate hunting needs. The younger owls that challenge your territory are increasingly sophisticated, benefiting from the accumulated knowledge of their species. But your experience still gives you advantages that overcome their physical condition. The battles you fight are more strategic than the desperate conflicts of your youth, requiring intelligence and patience rather than raw aggression. Your mate relationships become more complex as you age. Some partnerships last multiple seasons, while others are brief alliances based on immediate reproductive needs. The emotional bonds you form are deeper than the simple territorial cooperations of your youth, but they're also more vulnerable to the pressures of survival. The winter hunting that once nearly killed you becomes routine, though never without challenge. You've learned to read weather patterns and prey behavior with an accuracy that allows you to maintain condition even during the harshest conditions. The skills that once required desperate effort now feel natural and instinctive. Your hunting success rate stabilizes at levels that would have seemed impossible during your inexperienced years. The combination of superior technique, extensive knowledge, and strategic thinking makes you one of the most effective predators in your ecosystem. The abundance you've achieved allows you to focus on quality rather than quantity in your prey selection. The territorial boundaries you've established become permanent features of the local owl geography. Other owls plan their movements around your claims, and the hunting pressure you exert influences prey behavior throughout the region. Your presence has become a defining factor in the ecosystem's structure and function. The calls you make carry across increasing distances as your voice develops the resonance and authority of a mature dominant. The communications network you're part of relies on your participation, and your absence would be noticed by owls throughout the region. You've become an integral part of the social structure that governs owl behavior. Your migration routes become established pathways that you follow with minor variations year after year. The knowledge you've accumulated about favorable hunting areas, weather patterns, and potential hazards makes your journeys increasingly efficient. The desperate flights of your youth have evolved into strategic movements designed to maximize your survival and reproductive success. The winter territories you claim become increasingly valuable as your reputation spreads. Other owls defer to your presence, and competition for the areas you favor intensifies. Your success in establishing and defending prime hunting grounds reflects your status as one of the most competent owls in the population. Your physical condition remains excellent as you enter your prime adult years. The constant demands of your lifestyle have maintained your strength and agility at peak levels. Your feathers are perfect, your flight is powerful, and your hunting reflexes remain sharp. The harsh environment that eliminates weaker owls has instead made you stronger and more capable. The breeding successes of your offspring begin to contribute to your genetic legacy. Some of your children have established their own territories and begun reproducing, spreading your genes through the population. The survival skills you taught them are being passed on to a new generation, ensuring that your knowledge contributes to the species' long-term success. Your territory expands to encompass prime hunting habitat that you've defended for years. The boundaries you maintain are respected by other owls, and your status in the local hierarchy is unquestioned. You've become one of the apex predators in your ecosystem, a presence that shapes the behavior of both prey and competitor species. The hunting techniques you've refined over years of experience approach perfection. You can read terrain features and prey behavior with an accuracy that seems almost supernatural. The skills that once required conscious effort have become instinctive, allowing you to focus on strategic rather than tactical considerations during hunts. Your calls resonate across the territory with the authority of an established dominant. Other owls recognize your voice and respond appropriately, whether they're potential mates, territorial rivals, or young birds seeking guidance. The communication network you participate in spans hundreds of square miles, connecting you to owls whose behavior affects your daily existence. The migrations that once nearly killed you become routine, though never without risk. You've learned to read weather patterns and anticipate the behavior of other migrating species. The knowledge you've gained about productive hunting areas along your route makes your journeys increasingly efficient and successful. Your winter territories shift as you explore new regions and exploit different opportunities. The adaptability you've developed allows you to thrive in diverse ecosystems. Climate variations that might challenge less experienced owls become opportunities for you to demonstrate your superior skills and knowledge. The social relationships you maintain become more complex as you age. You're no longer just a territorial defender and hunter. You're a mentor to younger owls, a competitor with peers, and a respected member of the broader owl community. The connections you've established influence your access to resources and your success in territorial disputes. Your physical prime extends well into your maturity, supported by the constant demands of your lifestyle. The harsh environment that kills so many owls has instead maintained your condition at peak levels. Your strength, agility, and hunting reflexes remain sharp, testimony to your success in adapting to challenging conditions. The prey populations in your territory fluctuate with natural cycles, but your experience allows you to adapt to changing conditions. You've learned to exploit alternative food sources during lean periods and to build reserves during times of abundance. Your strategic thinking now encompasses long-term resource management rather than simple day-to-day survival. Your breeding success continues to attract scientific attention. The data collected from your banded offspring contributes to understanding of owl ecology and population dynamics. Your unwitting contribution to conservation science helps inform management decisions that benefit your entire species. The territory you've shaped through years of occupation becomes a model of successful habitat management. The prey populations you've influenced through predation pressure remain stable and healthy. The shelter sites you've maintained provide refuges for numerous species. Your presence has created positive effects that extend throughout the ecosystem. The younger owls that challenge your territory are increasingly sophisticated, but your experience still provides crucial advantages. The conflicts you engage in require intelligence and patience rather than raw aggression. Your strategic thinking allows you to maintain dominance, even as your physical condition begins to show subtle signs of aging. Your mate relationships evolve as you gain experience with the complexities of pair bonding. Some partnerships last multiple seasons, while others are brief alliances based on immediate reproductive needs. The emotional bonds you form are deeper than the simple cooperations of your youth, but they're also more vulnerable to the pressures of survival. The winter hunting that once represented a desperate struggle for survival becomes manageable, though never without challenge. You've learned to read weather patterns and prey behavior with an accuracy that allows you to maintain condition even during harsh conditions. The skills that once required desperate effort now feel natural and instinctive. Your hunting success rate reaches levels that would have seemed impossible during your inexperienced years. The combination of superior technique, extensive knowledge, and strategic thinking makes you one of the most effective predators in your ecosystem. The abundance you've achieved allows you to focus on quality rather than quantity in your prey selection. Your prime years stretch on, each season bringing new challenges and opportunities. You've mastered the art of survival in one of the harshest environments on Earth, and your success is measured not just in your own survival, but in the thriving offspring you've contributed to the population. You've become what your parents once were, a skilled predator capable of raising the next generation of hunters. But even apex predators age, and eventually, the accumulated stress of years of survival begins to take its toll. Your reflexes slow slightly, your strength diminishes marginally, and your recovery from injuries takes longer than it once did. The changes are subtle at first, barely noticeable, but they represent the beginning of the end of your dominance. The first sign of declining condition comes during a difficult winter, when prey is scarce and competition is intense. You find yourself struggling to maintain the hunting success that once came easily. The efficient kills that characterized your prime become more difficult to achieve, and you're forced to work harder for the same results. Your territorial boundaries begin to contract as younger, stronger owls challenge your claims. The confrontations you once won easily become more difficult, and you're forced to concede some of your prime hunting areas to more vigorous competitors. The process is gradual but inexorable, a slow erosion of the dominance you've maintained for years. Your breeding success begins to decline as well. The energy required for successful reproduction becomes more difficult to maintain, and your ability to provide for growing chicks is compromised by your reduced hunting efficiency. Some of your late-season clutches fail entirely, the chicks dying from inadequate nutrition or failing to develop properly. The migrations that once seemed routine become more challenging as your endurance diminishes. The long flights that you once completed without difficulty now require more frequent rest stops and careful management of your energy reserves. The knowledge you've accumulated helps compensate for your physical decline, but it can't completely offset the effects of aging. Your winter territories shrink as you're forced to accept less desirable hunting areas. The prime locations you once claimed are taken by younger, more vigorous owls, and you must adapt to marginal habitat that provides fewer opportunities. The strategic thinking that sustained you through your prime becomes even more important as your physical capabilities decline. The social relationships you've maintained throughout your adult life begin to change as other owls recognize your diminishing status. The respect you once commanded is gradually replaced by indifference or even challenges from owls who would never have dared to confront you in your prime. The hierarchy you once dominated is shifting, and you're no longer at its apex. Your calls carry less authority now, lacking the resonance and confidence that once commanded attention from owls throughout the region. The communication network you were once central to continues to function, but your voice is less influential in its discussions. You're becoming a peripheral figure in the social structure you once helped define. The hunting techniques you perfected over years of experience remain effective, but they require more effort to execute successfully. The prey that once seemed easy to catch now challenges your diminished reflexes and reduced strength. You're forced to rely more heavily on patience and strategic positioning rather than speed and power. Your physical condition shows clear signs of aging now. Your feathers are less lustrous, your flight is less powerful, and your recovery from exertion takes longer than it once did. The harsh environment that once made you stronger is now working against you, accelerating the aging process that affects all living creatures. The territory you've defended for years begins to feel too large for your diminished capabilities. The boundaries you once patrolled effortlessly now require careful management of your energy reserves. You're forced to prioritize the most important areas while allowing less crucial regions to go undefended. Your mate relationships become more difficult to maintain as your reduced hunting success affects your ability to provide for partners and offspring. The partnerships that once seemed natural and beneficial become burdensome, requiring more energy than you can spare. You begin to spend more time alone, conserving your resources for essential activities. The breeding attempts you make become less successful as your condition continues to decline. The energy required for courtship, territorial defense, and chick provisioning becomes increasingly difficult to maintain. Your reproductive success, once a source of pride and accomplishment, begins to fail as your capabilities diminish. The winter hunting that once challenged but never defeated you becomes a genuine struggle for survival. The prey that once seemed abundant becomes scarce, and your reduced efficiency makes it difficult to catch enough food to maintain your condition. The strategic thinking that once compensated for physical limitations becomes insufficient to overcome your declining capabilities. Your migration routes become shorter and more conservative as your endurance diminishes. The long flights that once carried you to optimal wintering grounds are no longer possible, and you're forced to settle for less desirable territories closer to your breeding grounds. The knowledge you've accumulated helps you make the best of poor conditions, but it can't overcome the fundamental limitations of your aging body. The younger owls that once deferred to your presence now challenge you openly. The territorial disputes that once seemed routine become genuine threats to your survival. Your experience and knowledge provide some advantages, but they're increasingly insufficient to overcome the physical superiority of younger competitors. Your hunting success rate continues to decline as your reflexes slow and your strength diminishes. The prey that once seemed easy to catch now challenges your reduced capabilities. You're forced to focus on smaller, less challenging targets, and even these require more effort than they once did. The social isolation that accompanies your declining status becomes more pronounced. The owls that once sought your company now avoid you, recognizing that association with a failing individual provides no benefits. The communication network you once participated in continues to function, but your voice is no longer welcome in its discussions. Your calls become less frequent and less confident as your condition deteriorates. The authority that once characterized your voice is replaced by uncertainty and weakness. The territorial announcements that once commanded respect now invite challenges from owls who recognize your vulnerability. The territory you've maintained for years begins to fragment as you lose the ability to defend its boundaries effectively. The prime hunting areas you once controlled are claimed by younger, more vigorous owls, and you're forced to retreat to marginal habitat that provides fewer opportunities for successful hunting. Your physical condition shows clear signs of serious decline now. Your feathers are dull and damaged, your flight is labored and inefficient, and your recovery from even minor exertion takes longer than you can afford. The harsh environment that once strengthened you is now accelerating your deterioration. The hunting techniques you've refined over years of experience remain in your memory, but your body can no longer execute them effectively. The prey that once seemed predictable now eludes your slowed reflexes and reduced strength. You're forced to rely on scavenging and opportunistic feeding rather than active hunting. Your last successful breeding attempt produces only one viable chick, and even that requires tremendous effort to sustain. The energy required for territorial defense, mate provisioning, and chick care pushes your declining capabilities to their limits. The offspring you manage to raise represents your final contribution to the species' future. The winter that follows your last breeding season is the most difficult of your life. The prey that once sustained you through harsh conditions is now beyond your capability to catch. The hunting grounds you once dominated are controlled by younger owls who view you as competition to be eliminated rather than a veteran to be respected. Your final migration is a desperate attempt to reach wintering grounds that might offer better survival prospects. The flight that once seemed routine now challenges your failing strength and endurance. You're forced to make frequent stops, and each resumption of flight becomes more difficult than the last. The territory you eventually claim for your final winter is marginal habitat that no other owl wants. The hunting opportunities are poor, the shelter is inadequate, and the competition from other predators is intense. You're surviving on scraps and carrion, a far cry from the abundant prey that once sustained you. Your body begins to fail in earnest now. The accumulated stress of years of survival in harsh conditions, combined with the natural aging process, overwhelms your ability to maintain basic functions. Your immune system weakens, your digestion becomes inefficient, and your energy reserves are depleted beyond recovery. The hunting that once defined your existence becomes increasingly difficult and eventually impossible. The prey that once seemed abundant now eludes your failing capabilities entirely. You're reduced to scavenging what little you can find, but even this meager sustenance is insufficient to maintain your deteriorating condition. Your final weeks are spent in gradual decline, your body slowly shutting down as the harsh environment that shaped your life finally claims its due. The territory you once defended with fierce determination becomes simply a place to wait for the inevitable end. The skills that once made you a formidable predator fade as your strength ebbs away. The calls that once echoed across miles of territory become weak and infrequent. The authority that once commanded respect from owls throughout the region is replaced by the fading voice of a creature whose time has passed. The communication network you once participated in continues without your contribution. Your last days are spent in solitude, the social connections that once sustained you severed by your inability to maintain the relationships that required mutual benefit. The owls that once sought your company now avoid you, recognizing that your presence offers nothing but a reminder of their own eventual fate. The end comes quietly on a cold February morning, as you simply fail to wake from the sleep that has claimed more and more of your time. Your body, worn out by years of survival in one of the harshest environments on Earth, finally surrenders to the inevitable. The territory you once defended returns to the wilderness, and the hunting grounds you once controlled are claimed by younger, more vigorous owls. Your legacy lives on in the offspring you raised and the knowledge you passed on. The hunting techniques you developed, the territorial strategies you pioneered, and the survival skills you demonstrated have been inherited by a new generation of owls. Your genetic contribution to the population ensures that your adaptations to harsh conditions will continue to benefit your species long after your death. The territory you shaped through years of occupation continues too. The territory you shaped through years of occupation continues to support diverse wildlife populations. The prey management strategies you unknowingly implemented through your hunting pressure have created a balanced ecosystem that benefits numerous species. The shelter sites you maintained and the travel corridors you established remain important features of the landscape. Your body becomes part of the ecosystem you dominated for so long. Scavengers discover your remains within hours of your death, and the nutrients from your decomposing form enrich the soil where countless prey animals will find sustenance. The calcium from your bones will strengthen the shells of bird eggs, and the nitrogen from your tissues will nourish the plants that feed herbivorous prey species. The hunting techniques you developed through years of experience become part of the collective knowledge of your species. Young owls in the region inherit behavioral patterns influenced by your innovations, and the most successful strategies you pioneered spread through the population. Your contribution to the evolutionary adaptation of snowy owls extends far beyond your individual lifetime. The territory you defended becomes available to younger owls who will face the same challenges you once overcame. The hunting grounds you established will test new generations of predators, and the territorial boundaries you defined will be redrawn by fresh competitions. The cycle that began with your hatching continues, powered by the same drives that shaped your existence. Your mate from the previous season returns to the breeding grounds in spring, but your absence changes the dynamics of territorial competition. The partnership that once contributed to successful reproduction is dissolved, and she must find new alliances to continue her own reproductive success. The bonds you formed were strong, but survival demands adaptability rather than sentiment. The communication network you once participated in adjusts to your absence, with other owls assuming the roles you once filled. The vocal territories you once announced become silent, creating gaps in the social structure that other owls must fill. The hierarchy you once dominated reorganizes itself around remaining participants. Your offspring from previous seasons continue to thrive in their own territories, carrying forward the genetic advantages you provided and the survival skills you taught them. Some have become successful breeding adults themselves, contributing to the population's stability and genetic diversity. Your influence on the species' future extends through multiple generations. The research data collected from your banded offspring contributes to scientific understanding of owl population dynamics and migration patterns. The information gathered during your lifetime helps inform conservation decisions that will benefit your entire species. Your unwitting contribution to science extends your impact beyond your immediate ecosystem. The hunting grounds you once dominated experience temporary disruption as the prey species you controlled adjust to your absence. The population dynamics you influenced through predation pressure shift toward new equilibrium points. The ecological niche you occupied becomes available for other predators to exploit. Your story represents the successful completion of a life cycle that began with desperate vulnerability and ended with accomplished mastery. From the helpless chick who nearly died in that Arctic scrape to the dominant predator who shaped an entire ecosystem, your existence demonstrates the remarkable adaptability of your species. The transformation from dependent offspring to successful parent illustrates the power of natural selection to create creatures capable of thriving in hostile environments. The skills you developed through years of survival become part of the behavioral repertoire available to future generations. The hunting techniques you refined, the territorial strategies you pioneered, and the social adaptations you developed contribute to the collective wisdom of your species. Your individual learning becomes part of the evolutionary heritage that will help future owls face similar challenges. The territory you defended for years becomes a case study in successful predator-prey relationships. The balanced ecosystem you helped maintain through your hunting pressure demonstrates the importance of apex predators in maintaining ecological stability. Your presence has shaped the landscape in ways that extend far beyond your immediate hunting needs. Your lifespan of 8 years represents a successful existence for a snowy owl, longer than many of your contemporaries achieved. The challenges you overcame, the offspring you raised, and the territory you defended demonstrate the remarkable resilience of your species. Your death marks the end of one story, but the continuation of countless others influenced by your existence. The harsh environment that shaped your life continues to test new generations of owls. The Arctic tundra where you were born remains as unforgiving as ever, demanding the same adaptations and survival skills that you developed. The seasonal migrations that nearly killed you continue to challenge young owls making their first journeys south. Your existence bridged the gap between individual survival and species success. The challenges you faced as a solitary hunter contributed to your effectiveness as a breeding adult, and your success in raising offspring ensured the continuation of genetic lines adapted to harsh. I hope you liked the story. Here you can find the next video. Until then, see you soon.